Charlie Kirk claimed that my people are an abomination and a middle finger to God. I'd like to say that in the Bible it says that we are all created in God's image, but we are still killed by those who tout Christian love.
If disagreement is hate, then she just expressed hate.
If the Bible teaches love and acceptance of everybody, why are we stripping rights away from minorities?
Okay, so rights don't come from the collective. Where do they come from?
I mean, you can look back to Thomas Jefferson, who said, all men are created equal. You didn't say that earlier. Earlier you said, all men are created under the light.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Rose Daphne. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm a proud transgender woman. I'd like to say that Charlie Kirk claimed that my people are an abomination and a middle finger to God. I'd like to say that in the Bible it says that we are all created in God's image, but we are still killed by those who tout Christian love. I'm not here to debate my humanity. I'm not here to debate the humanity of any of my sisters who have been murdered. Again, 13 in the city of Houston, Texas. But I'm here to remind everyone that my people are suffering because of the hatred that is parroted through the mouths of people like Charlie Kirk. He has called for the destruction of my people, and we are dying for it, and we are suffering for it.
Okay,
that's all I have to say tonight.
Okay.
No.
Now, excuse me, hold on. I need to respond to that. And that is, if disagreement is hate, then she just expressed hate. Disagreement is not hate. It can be, obviously, but saying that somebody is going down the wrong road in their life is not hate, it's love. That's what Charlie was saying in the video before. When Jesus talks to the woman caught in adultery, he says, go and sin no more. You don't approve of things that are going to hurt people. You try and tell them that God wants them to be whole. And here is the way to do it. So disagreement isn't necessarily hate. Love does not mean approval. And giving a middle finger to God, the God who created you and sacrificed himself to save you, is obviously something that is very, very sad and just demonstrates rebellion and hurt. But you know what? Whatever the young lady's name was, Jesus died for her too. Jesus died for me. Jesus died for you.
Charlie Kirk built his reputation mixing religion with politics, and pastors like Frank Turek defended his views. But when you listen closely, their answers about freedom, rights, and suffering fall apart. Let's break down what Charlie said, how Turek echoed it, and why both fail to address the real problem of evil. Rose is right to point out the harm that comes from Charlie Kirk's words. Transgender people face disproportionate violence. In Houston, where she is from, the Human Rights Campaign has tracked dozens of murders of transgender women in recent years. Nationally, the 2023 U.S. Transgender Survey reported that almost half of transgender people have experienced verbal harassment, and nearly 1 in 10 were physically attacked. When pastors like Frank Turek frame that suffering as love or guidance, it ignores real consequences. Research from the American Journal of Public Health shows that hostile rhetoric against LGBTQ people correlates with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide attempts. Saying disagreement is not hate does not erase the fact that Kirk called transgender people an abomination. That language fuels violence. According to the FBI's hate crime statistics, anti-transgender hate crimes rose nearly 33% in 2022. You cannot claim to defend life while excusing words that cost people their lives. Minority rights, including transgender rights, are about protecting human beings from the outcomes of this hostility.
Yes, go ahead. What's your name?
Hi, thank you. My name is Seth Bernier.
Seth, go ahead.
I was at Scare Winds 4 years ago when there was a shooting happen, so I understand your pain. My one question is, if the Bible teaches love and acceptance of everybody, why are we stripping rights away from minorities?
Okay, first question is, where do rights come from?
They come from a collective agreement.
A collective agreement. So then, if a certain group of people say you're Jewish and you don't have any rights, we're going to put you in the gas ovens, that's okay?
No.
Okay, so rights don't come from the collective. Where do they come from?
I mean, you can look back to Thomas Jefferson, who said, all men are created equal. You didn't say that earlier. Earlier you said, all men are created under the light of God.
What I quoted was Jefferson saying, all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator.
Yes, but the quote is, all men are created equal.
Right.
And we hold these truths to be self-evident.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That
All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
So what's your point?
My point is, why are we, if the Bible is preaching love and acceptance, why are we not loving and accepting everybody for who they are?
Well, the question is, the Bible doesn't accept our actions. The Bible accepts us because we're made in God's image. Every action a person does isn't good.
No, and I agree with that.
Okay, so that's your answer. If you're doing something that is against God's will,
but then why did he make those things? Why did he make different kinds of people if he wants to then say, no, you're bad, and no, you're going to go to hell for that?
We're all bad. We all have an orientation toward bad behavior. That's why Jesus had to come, to save all of us. The same message to me is the same message to you and everybody else out there, whether they identify, however they identify. The same message is we're all fallen, we all need a Savior. And once we accept that Savior out of love for what He's done for us, we should want to follow Him. That's the message. It's for you, it's for me, it's the same message.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seth asked the right question. If the Bible teaches love and acceptance, why are people using it to strip away rights from minorities? History shows that rights are not handed down by religion. They are secured through law and collective action. Civil rights, women's rights, and LGBTQ+ rights all came from movements that pushed governments to recognize equality, not from churches. Frank Turek tries to frame rights as endowed by a creator, but that ignores the fact that in practice, minority rights only expand when society agrees to protect them. The Supreme Court's 2015 decision in Obergefell versus Hodges gave same-sex couples the right to marry. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed discrimination based on race. Those protections came from human struggle, not scripture. When pastors argue that some people are fallen and need saving, they excuse unequal treatment. Data from the Trevor Project shows that LGBTQ+ youth who live in accepting communities are far less likely to attempt suicide compared to those who face religious rejection. The evidence is clear. Equal rights and acceptance save lives, while sermons about sin do harm.
Sir, what's your name?
Spencer.
Spencer?
Yeah.
There's another Spencer right there. Go ahead.
My question is, so God put the tree in the garden to give us free will, but if you go before that, why would He make us knowing what we would become and knowing the evil that the earth would become?
Because knowing what someone's going to do isn't the same as causing us to do it. I know tomorrow the sun's going to rise in the east, but I'm not causing it to rise in the east. My daughter-in-law, when she puts down a new baby, she knows at some point that night that baby's going to wake up and want to eat, but her knowing that doesn't cause the baby to wake up and eat. So when God creates the universe, He knows how it's going to turn out, but He's not causing it to turn out in the sense that He's taking away our free will. And this goes back to the point we were making earlier. If God wanted to create a universe where nobody actually sinned, it might have one or two people in it. That's it. God can't force free creatures to do what he wants because then they wouldn't be free. So God creates a universe where the maximum number of people can be saved, the minimum number of people are lost, because God believes it's better to have loved and have lost than to never have loved at all. So God is not under any obligation to not create because some people want to rebel against him. That would be hell vetoing heaven. So God creates, he gives people free will, and he allows them to make the choices that they want to make. And sometimes we make choices that follow God, and many times we make choices that don't. And calling something that God doesn't want you to do a right doesn't make it a right. Rights come from God. Otherwise, they're just preferences. Does that make sense?
Maybe could you explain the answer one more time?
Go ahead. What else you wanted to add to it?
No, could you just explain the answer one more time? Could you explain the answer one more time?
Actually, sorry, I can't.
Okay.
Because we are 11 minutes from shutdown, so I got to move on.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it, Spencer. We could probably only do a couple of more, and then I've got to conclude. So maybe two more. I'm sorry, we can't get to them all. But go ahead, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so my question comes from a debate I had recently with somebody, and they were talking about the polar oppositeness of eternal life. And let me give you a scenario. So they were saying, like, let's say you had two kids that were estranged from you. For whatever reason, you still wouldn't wish suffering on them just because they don't talk to you anymore, they don't want anything to do with you. So my question is, like, why didn't God create an in-between of eternal life and eternal death? So, because...
What do you mean in between eternal life and eternal death?
Like between heaven and hell. So
like a purgatory where you got to have your sins expunged before you get into heaven? What do you mean?
I wouldn't say necessarily expunged, but somewhere where it's like, because he didn't want us to suffer, he doesn't wish suffering on us, he wants us to be with him in heaven. That's what I believe.
Okay. Yeah, he does. He wants all people to be saved, but some people don't want to be saved.
Right, so I'm saying, like, okay, so let's say take a person who's morally good, right?
Okay. There's no such person other than Jesus, but go ahead.
Okay, so they believe themselves to be morally good. We'll say that.
Okay, they're wrong. Next. Go ahead.
So I'm just like, I guess my plain question is, why is there no, like, eternal middle ground?
Why is there no, you mean where people are doing what? They're either with God or they're not. There's no third option.
But why?
In the afterlife.
Like, why wasn't that created?
What could be the middle between being with God and not being with God?
Spencer asked one of the hardest questions. If God is all-knowing, why would he create humanity knowing the violence and suffering that would come? The pastor tried to dodge this with analogies about babies crying at night, but those examples trivialize real pain. If God truly knew genocide, slavery, and child abuse were coming, then choosing to create anyway makes him responsible. The Bible itself shows this tension. Isaiah 45:7 says, I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. If God is sovereign, then evil is not outside his control. The idea of free will does not solve that. As philosophers like J.L. Mackie pointed out, an all-powerful God could create free beings who always freely choose good. The fact that Christians say he could not is an admission of limitation. The pastor also claims rights come from God. But American history tells a different story. The Bill of Rights was written precisely to keep government and religion separate, because religious groups use scripture to defend slavery and deny women the vote. Rights are not handed down from above. They are won through human struggle. When the pastor says, calling something God doesn't want you to do a right doesn't make it a right, he is saying that LGBTQ+ rights, reproductive rights, and civil rights are invalid if they do not line up with his theology. That is not love. That is authoritarianism dressed up as faith.
Yes, sir.
Hi there, Mr. Kirk. Thank you for being out here, and I appreciate your eagerness for an open dialogue. I believe the scariest thing about your beliefs is your eagerness to have a Christian theocracy. I think that's the scariest thing about J.D. Vance as well. Can you defend it, explain how it doesn't, or how it goes with the First Amendment, and also how it won't affect people who aren't Christian?
Well, I don't want a theocracy. I want this. I want the Constitution. So I want a free society. But I am a Christian, and we have Christian roots, and we must understand that.
Okay, the Christian roots. First Amendment, you don't see a little
Let's read what the First Amendment says. So what do you think the First Amendment says?
Freedom of religion, freedom of speech.
Right. So how is that an issue?
It's not. You can be a Christian in the U.S., obviously, but I think what you're promoting, and you've been J.D. Vance's biggest supporter.
I'm a huge J.D. Vance supporter, but I'm not going to speak for him. I'll speak for myself. Fair enough?
Yes, that's fair.
Got it. But no, what's the issue with the First Amendment?
I have no issue with the First Amendment.
No, how is that irreconcilable with Christianity?
I see a danger with a Christian theocracy.
Well, I agree. I'm not a theocrat. I want a free society.
You support people who are Christian theocrats.
Well, it depends. I mean, I might agree with them on certain issues.
Vance is a huge Christian theocrat.
Vance again, I will speak for him on this. He wants what I want. He wants a restoration of a free society.
He wants a Christian society.
Well, a Christian society is different than a theocracy. You'd agree. If you want the most Americans to be Christian, it's different than the composition of the government that you want, right?
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I want a revival of Christianity in this country. I want people to give their life to Jesus in huge numbers, but I want a government that is rooted in the Constitution and is a Republican, small r Republican form of government.
Fantastic. You defended that very well. I think you often correlate that Christianity to the loss of masculinity in the country. Would that be correct?
Sometimes, yeah. I think that as America has become more secular and feminine, we've become less Christian, for sure. But I think that men who understand the gospel and understand the scriptures will take ownership of their life, of their family, and then their country, for sure.
But you said that lost masculinity and also persecuting whites has been leading to Auschwitz, correct?
Well, that's not exactly what I said, but yes, I said if you single out a group based on skin color or heritage, that is how you get Auschwitz, which is quite a statement, but there's a lot of steps and sequences before you get to Auschwitz, but yes.
We don't see any dichotomy with that and being a Christian society. Well, that's how we get there. If you look at...
Oh, okay, so you think Nazi Germany was Christian?
I'm saying Hitler defended himself in Christian, but he used nationalistic German ideas. He said, this is what Germany was, this is what we want Germany to return to. And that's how he rose to power. He rose democratically.
So, first of all, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I think we should all, myself included, do a better job. Not everything is Nazi Germany. Do we agree?
Yes, but you did say that.
No, I said I could do a better job of that, right? Okay. So there are plenty of other examples in history to point to that are not Nazi Germany, right? But this idea that Adolf Hitler was some sort of like devout Christian or would use Christian symbology or imagery is very, very flawed. He was a nationalist socialist, mind you. Nazi literally means the Nationalist Socialist Workers' Party. But there were a lot of Christians and pastors that he imprisoned and killed, Dietrich Bonhoeffer being one of them. There was a lot of conscientious objectors in Nazi Germany that resisted Hitler. But the bigger issue in Nazi Germany was churches that did nothing. They didn't agree or disagree, but they were just sat idly by. And so what I say as a Christian, again, overusing the Nazi Germany comparisons, is we as Christians should not sit idly by when evil is occurring. And I think that's a lesson to take out of Nazi Germany.
That's right. Completely fair. Cool. But I think it goes beyond national Germany. I think a lot of nationalism has ties with religion beyond Nazi Germany. If you look at Cambodia, if you look at Turkey, if you look at Italy in the 1930s, they directly correlated religion with their nationalism.
Not always. Mao's China was explicitly atheist, right? Stalin was
But Mao wasn't fascist.
Well, he was a murderer. He was really bad. Yes. Right? But again, how you define it, he had government control over everything. Mao was one of the greatest evils ever. Explicitly atheist. Stalin was explicitly atheist, right? So nationalism is also a very healthy thing at times, too. It does not always lead to extreme horrors. Do you agree?
I think you can differentiate nationalism and patriotism.
Okay.
I don't have any fears with patriotism.
What I think is nationalism, what you probably think is patriotism, so I'll grant you that. But the idea, what we're living through is inverse nationalism, where we're told that that our symbols are terrible, our history is crummy.
And I don't
No, you don't like that, right?
No.
But yes, nationalism can get too far, of course, but we're not even in that arena or that ballpark.
I think we are close to that arena. I think people believe that Trump's a messiah. That's what scares me.
I don't hold that view. Jesus Christ is my messiah.
I think people who support you hold that view, and that scares me.
I don't know if anyone here thinks Trump is a messiah.
That allows, he's equivalent himself to Jesus. Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
I've never heard that.
Yes,
I don't believe that. Meaning I don't believe he is that, right?
Yes.
But I think, let me ask you a question. In the current world we're in, would a nationalist movement or a globalist movement scare you more?
I believe within this country, a national movement. I'm not a globalist. I know you're not. I thought we should have gone out of Afghanistan. I disagree with a lot of left policies on globalism. I think for me, as not being a Christian, I'm afraid of nationalism. I'm afraid of how that leads to removing abortion rights. I believe that how that relates to only allowing immigrants who are Christian. That's my greatest fear.
Do you see and do you acknowledge that the inheritance of this great country was largely built by Christians?
The majority of the people in the country were Christians. That doesn't mean we
Do you
are.
think it has anything to do with why the country was great?
Oh, I'm not going to get trapped here. I'm not going to let myself.
Well, it's not a trap. I'm just like,
No.
because it was a great country and most of the country was Christian. Are those two things two separate data points, or is there any reason why those two things were both true?
I think there's a link, but I think there's plenty of immigrants who were not Christian. I think Jewish people. I think immigrants of all countries.
Yeah.
Just because you have the majority of Christians in the country, and America being a great country, doesn't mean that they're inextricably linked.
Let's take the Christian element out of it.
Yeah.
Let's just say the majority of the country was religious. Do you think the country was better when most of the country was religious and going to a church, a religious service, believed that there was a God, that they believed that there was something higher than them, that there was something holding them accountable? Do you think the country was better then?
Depends who you were in the country. If you were a slave, if you were an immigrant, if you're a person who wasn't Christian being persecuted, I would say no.
1980s. We didn't have slaves in the 1980s.
No, we did not have slaves in that. Right? You're bringing up the moral majority.
Yeah, so like the 1980s, which objectively there's this whole movement to bring back the 80s, right? Was the country, was there anything to the point, I'm asking for a reason, when more people believed in God?
I don't think it was believing in God. I think it was we were just less polarized as a people in the 80s.
Yeah, so of course, you know my belief. My belief is that when a country becomes less religious, more secular, something fills that void, and that void right now is leftism. That void is BLM movements, the trans stuff, Democrat politics, and so you can have high opinions or low opinions of Christianity, but would you agree with Richard Dawkins, who's an atheist, that he likes Christian society?
Yeah, I think it depends what Christian society. I think a modern day Western Christian society, I don't necessarily have a problem with. I think sects of Christianity, certainly KKK, certainly FODS, I have problems with.
I don't think they're going to find any KKK here. So, yeah.
But those are the people. I'm saying
fair enough.
The far Christians are voting for Trump. The far Christians are not voting for Kamala Harris.
You're coming after this from a great perspective. I don't think you're going to believe me, but I hope I plant a seed. That you have an idea that's largely pushed by the media, that there's a bunch of like super KKK radical people that are waiting to take over the country, when in reality your average Christian's like this guy who just like wears a cross and I would imagine believes in Christianity because you have a cross. Okay, good. Not everyone does. And it's just like you know what I mean? Just like a pious person that believes there's a creator and we are not him, and wants to go to a church service and is doing their best and falls short. You know, but what I'm getting at is the mechanisms of a religious society is good for everybody. When somebody walks around and thinks that you were created and that you're not God, you tend to have better citizens.
That's completely fair. I think religion grounds a lot of people. I experienced anti-Semitism because of someone's religion in high school.
I'm sorry.
They were not pious. You say everyone's pious.
Not everybody. I
think it's less people than you think are pious.
Okay, fair enough. And you have a life experience that has shaped your view, and now you
don't have that life experience.
No, I don't. I have the opposite perspective, and that's fair enough. Are you Jewish?
I am.
Okay.
I'm very secular about it as well.
You're welcome here in the conservative movement, for what it's worth. So, thank you very much.
Let's look back at what Charlie said here. He denied wanting a theocracy, but kept insisting America was great because it was Christian. That is the same logic Frank Turek used when he defended Charlie's theology. Both want to claim that Christianity is about love and truth, but the record tells another story. Charlie said a Christian society makes better citizens. But history shows when religion had the most influence, America was not more equal. Segregation, bans on interracial marriage, and criminalization of LGBTQ+. people all thrived in that so-called Christian society. That is not freedom. That is control. Charlie also tried to distance Christianity from fascism, but nationalism and religion have gone hand in hand in places like Mussolini's Italy and Franco's Spain. Turek echoes that same danger when he says rights come from God. If rights depend on one religion's approval, minorities lose them the moment they do not fit that standard. This exposes the dark truth. The Christian response to evil, whether from Kirk or Turek, does not explain suffering or protect equality. It excuses inequality. It tells some people they are less human while insisting it is love. The evidence shows the opposite. Faith used this way fuels harm, not healing. If you want more commentary that confronts these claims with facts, like and subscribe for future videos.
That means that for some reason, suddenly that moral worth comes in, but it wasn't there before when you had these two cells who had half the DNA. But suddenly there's a
correct. Yes, something magical happens at that.
It's not magical, Charlie. We know about this.
Well, hold on.
Charlie.
Time out.
Simply about the fact that if you feel like that's what you need to do with your body, then that's what you do. Because I could also.
Well, hold on a second. If it's not your DNA, how is it your body?
It is your DNA.
No,
it's a part of you. It's growing in you. It's connected to you by an umbilical cord. It is a part of you.
1 second. It's attached.
A part.
It's attached, not a part. Part, by definition, means it remains permanent.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, okay.
So an attachment is something that is temporary. And so you are not your mom's DNA. You're not your dad's DNA. You are new deoxyribonucleic acid.
All right, so thank you for coming, Charlie. My question to you, I'm a medical student, and so I'm going to throw out the big A word. I know you get asked about it a lot, but I want to hear from you what your opinion is on abortion.
Life begins at conception.
But about abortion specifically, why do you think abortion's wrong specifically?
Well, you agree murder is wrong?
I agree. Okay, so this is where we get to the question, right? Because what is it about murder you say is wrong? Like, why is murder wrong?
Well, because it's a human being, not just because it has consciousness or because it's of a certain age, because it's a human.
And what is it that gives human being this moral worth?
Not its consciousness necessarily.
I didn't say it's consciousness.
I know that. I can imagine it because it is a human being, because that has a soul.
And what is this soul? Where does this come from? This idea that it's...
Exactly. Again, the Greeks postulated that it is the entirety of your being. Okay, you guys can laugh. It's true. Every civilization has had a different belief, but agreed upon ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West and what the birth certificate of my country articulates, is that every human being is more than just matter, it's more than just a clump of cells, but it also has an invisible element to you that will live beyond you.
Fine, so, can you say that comes from the Bible, or where else do you get that from?
Ethical monotheism, which is the creed of the West. And again, the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. The founders were explicitly believed, not in a secular morality, but a divinely given one, of at least this idea that there is a God and you are not him. And let me ask you, what is the first stage of human development?
So this is the thing, right? We can take it from the sperm being generated in the father and the oocyte being generated in the mother, right? They fuse at birth, conception, sorry. The only thing that happens at conception is these two cells fuse.
Right? No, DNA is created. A zygote.
DNA is not created.
A DNA, no, that's not true. The DNA,
Charlie,
DNA coding at the zygote. Hold on, time out.
I'll let you finish.
Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Charlie, DNA...
Does a zygote have a unique marker?
You have to let me speak. You have to...
But answer it, yes or no. Does a zygote have a unique marker?
Define a unique marker.
Meaning, can you differentiate the DNA coding between the mother and the zygote if you examine it under a deoxyribonucleic acid analysis? Can you?
Only purely because the addition comes from the father.
Oh, so it is something different.
Charlie, DNA is not created. DNA is not created. You have, the father has his own genome, the mother has her own genome. They fuse. This is why you have the same characteristics, similar ones to your mother, similar ones to your father. That's why you have similar characteristics to your siblings. DNA is not created, right? So when you ask me, where does a human being come from? I can say to you, it starts at conception, but all conception is these two cells joining, right? But these two cells were created, the mother's cells were created long before, they were created when she was a fetus. So there's none of this DNA being produced, right? So we can't establish, the only thing that happens at conception is these two cells fuse. Now this idea that means that for some reason, suddenly that moral worth comes in, but it wasn't there before when you had these two cells who had half the DNA, but suddenly there's a
correct, yes, something magical happens at that.
It's not magical, Charlie, we know about this.
When people like Charlie Kirk say life begins at conception, they ignore basic biology. Conception isn't the creation of life, it's the merging of two already living cells. Sperm and egg each carry DNA long before they meet. At fertilization, those DNA strands just recombine. That's not new life in a moral sense. It's cell division, the same natural process that happens in countless organisms that never become human beings. And when he brings up the idea of a soul, that's not science, it's theology. The Bible itself doesn't even support his claim. In Genesis 2:7, life begins when Adam breathes. Breath, not conception, is the biblical marker of life. Historically, even major Christian thinkers like Augustine and Aquinas believed ensoulment came weeks after conception, not at the moment sperm meets egg. The Catholic Church only shifted to conception in the 19th century, showing this belief is cultural, not eternal truth. So when Charlie falls back on magic to explain why a zygote should suddenly be treated as morally equal to a fully conscious person, that's not evidence. It's avoidance. The science and even the history of his own religion undermine his claim.
Well, hold on.
Charlie.
Time out. Hold on.
Charlie, I promise you, I'm not trying to score points. I'm not trying to score points on you. This is genuinely...
We call it the miracle of life for a reason. We've not been able to yet replicate human life development outside of the womb.
We call it the miracle of life because, yes, it's something beautiful, the ability to form a new...
Magical, is it?
It's not... You say magical as in, oh, it's beautiful, it's an incredible thing that happens, of course. But it's not incredible in the sense we don't know what's going on. There's no new DNA coming out of nowhere.
Hold on, but time out. Isn't there a separate DNA, though, than the mother?
Yes, from the father.
Okay, yes, but it's not the father's DNA either. A new coding is created.
Charlie,
you are a blend of the two. And so when did your life begin?
Okay, so
when did your life begin?
I mean, again, this comes from what you define as where life starts. You can say life starts at conception, but I'm telling you, I believe that's just an arbitrary point, right? That's just the moment these two cells fuse. Now, you say about this mother thing. So the way DNA is arranged in a cell is it's arranged in chromosomes. Chromosomes are paired up, so you have one from the mother, one from the father, typically, in a healthy individual, right? Now, you can take those maternal chromosomes out and you can find that this is who the person's mother is. And you can do the same with the father. Now, the reason you are different to your mother and father is because some of those chromosomes express genes that are different from each other. And so those genes interact and that's what gives rise to you, right? But there's no space for any kind of moral framework to come into that until you consider that a human being is capable of consciousness and of suffering. But if you take that out of the equation, the fact that these two DNA, whatever they call molecules, right? These two DNA molecules are fusing, that does not suddenly flip a switch that attributes moral worth to that individual. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to score points. I'm trying to understand.
By what moral standard do you believe that?
I believe that if an individual is capable of suffering, then it's wrong. Now, can I explain my opinion on abortion, just so you can understand? I would agree, as many reasonable people would, that at 9 months, it's unreasonable to expect someone to get an abortion, right? Unless you have some extreme circumstances. But for an elective abortion seems a bit radical to me. But it also seems radical to say that a woman who has just, the cells have just fused, to deny her of an abortion also seems wrong to me. Because that zygote is not capable of suffering, as far as we know.
So by what moral standard? Is that just your opinion? Where did you get that moral standard from?
Because suffering is a bad thing. We all know suffering is a bad thing. That's an objective fact, right?
Hold on. So you do believe in objective morality?
I believe that suffering is an objectively negative
So if you can't feel it, is it okay?
What do you mean if you can't?
You can't feel the pain, is it okay to inflict the pain?
In the sense that if no one's suffering from it, if you have a scenario where nobody is suffering from something, then yes, of course. Something is only a moral question if it affects someone's well-being.
So let me just make sure I understand this correctly. That if it doesn't affect their well-being, so dementia patients that don't know who they are or where they're from, can we execute dementia patients because they're confused about their well-being?
Can you imagine a scenario?
Or Alzheimer's patients.
Charlie,
Alzheimer's patients don't really know much about anything. Can we schedule them for execution because they can't technically suffer?
I'll respond. So can you imagine a scenario where we lived in a society where we killed people when they suffered from dementia, were incapable of suffering, and we killed them, right? It's not a scenario that involves an absence of suffering. There's still suffering involved. Imagine you grow up thinking, my dad could be killed at any moment because he's going to get dementia. Imagine living your life thinking, I could get dementia and suddenly I'd be killed by my state.
Imagine a world where you slaughter 1 million babies every year in America.
Charlie, it's not slaughter. That's the problem.
Hold on. If it's a forcible removal from the umbilical cord of another human life, again, we have clarity but not agreement. Biologically, you know that your entire coding began at conception. Your coding,
that's
your
what,
uniqueness.
That's what I'm denying. I disagree with that.
Okay, when those two cells fused together, to use your terminology,
yes,
that is where the process of
scientifically accepted terminology.
In the interest of time, can we bring this question to a close?
The process of human development objectively begins at that moment. Therefore, those human beings are deserving of human.
What makes Charlie's position fall apart is that he keeps treating DNA as if it's some magic stamp of personhood. But DNA doesn't create moral value. Every living cell, from skin cells to bacteria, has DNA. Having a genetic code doesn't make something a conscious being with rights. What matters is the capacity to experience, to suffer, to have awareness. That's why modern ethics, medicine, and even secular law draw the line not at conception, but at viability, brain activity, or the capacity for sentience. The student is right. Suffering is the real moral standard. That's not opinion. It's grounded in philosophy and supported by science. The philosopher Jeremy Bentham put it simply back in the 18th century. The question is not, can they reason? Nor, can they talk? But, can they suffer? That idea shaped human rights, animal welfare, and modern bioethics. Charlie tries to derail this with dementia patients, but that misses the point. Dementia patients can still feel pain, fear, and joy. They can still suffer. They're also embedded in families and communities, so killing them would cause enormous suffering for others. That's exactly why the student's argument holds up. Morality is about reducing harm and suffering, not about clinging to a mystical idea of souls or coding. And calling abortion slaughter is emotional manipulation. The reality is that most abortions occur in the first trimester, when the embryo has no brain activity and no capacity for pain. That's not slaughter, that's medicine. The numbers show it clearly. In the United States, about 93% of abortions happen before 13 weeks, long before the nervous system is developed enough for suffering.
Rights. We keep going, or do you want to?
No, thank you. Yeah, you can finish.
The process of development begins from the moment the sperm is being generated in the father, the moment the eggs are being generated in the mother. To say that suddenly the moral worth switches on when they fuse doesn't make any sense. That's just a point you've taken.
It makes perfect sense, because that is when your journey as a human being, when the sperm and egg were separate, you were not yet a fused human being. You were not created uniquely.
DNA existed.
Any image.
Your DNA existed. I thought.
Well, no, the parts of your DNA.
So the reason why I believe the right to an abortion, why just anyone, if you feel that's what you need to do, then you should do it. Because Matthew 7:1 says, do not judge or you too will be judged. Although Jesus does tell us to tell people, do not sin, it's not our place to judge them, you know? And then another thing that I wanted to bring up, this is crazy, but also the time, I just really want to know why you feel that abortion should be illegal.
Do you think murder should be illegal?
Murder is illegal.
So you think it should be? Do you think it should be illegal?
I just feel like there's a big difference between like a living, breathing human and then a fetus that is inside of another human's body.
Fair enough. What is the difference?
The difference is a fetus is inside of the body. You know what I'm saying? Like a fetus, it can't live on its own.
Got it. So let's go through a couple questions there.
Okay.
Why does somebody's location determine their moral worth?
It doesn't, but it's simply about the fact that if you feel like that's what you need to do with your body, then that's what you do. Because I could also
Well, hold on a second. If it's not your DNA, how is it your body?
It is your DNA.
No, it's not.
It's a part of you. It's growing in you. It's connected to you by an umbilical cord. It is a part of you.
1 second. It's attached.
A part.
It's attached. Hold on a second. It's attached, not a part.
Same thing.
No, it's actually not. A part, by definition, means it remains permanent.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, okay.
So an attachment is something that is temporary. And so it's not, you are not your mom's DNA, you're not your dad's DNA, you are new deoxyribonucleic acid. So shouldn't we say that if it's not your DNA, it's not your choice?
I mean, you could say that, but I mean, really, I just don't understand how you can use religion to back up your point of...
I haven't used it once. She brought up religion. I'm happy to use a non-religious line of questioning. We all agree murder is wrong.
Okay.
We all agree that it's a human Homo sapien.
Do you agree that the death penalty is wrong?
Well, no, I'm actually in support of the death penalty because
Okay.
people do
Okay.
something that justifies that, but that's a separate issue because the baby in utero did not
So
go...
what about the people who could possibly be proved innocent who have been awaiting their their death sentence?
Fair enough. That's a good argument, but it's separate, right? So there's been about 31 exonerations of posthumous people that have been exonerated of the death penalty. We're talking about a baby that did nothing wrong except exist.
Okay.
In utero, and there's about 1.5 million of them that just get discarded every year. So we agree murder is wrong. We agree it's a Homo sapien, meaning it's a human being. Therefore, murder is the forcible termination of a Homo sapien. Therefore, shouldn't abortion be wrong and illegal?
I still feel like it really, okay, for example...
But prove to me
something
why.
you said-
You use an ABC logical equation, right? So tell me under what standard, therefore, very simple, right? You're in college, you guys do this all the time, right? I hope so. So use an ABC, right? Aristotelian logic, whatever you want to use. Use an ABC sequence for me. Not
My
I feel...
reasoning why I believe that abortion should be legal is because of instances like rape and incest, but I already know that your belief on that because you've already stated that if your daughter were to be raped at 10 years old, you would make her give birth to the baby.
Baby would be delivered, and let me tell you why. And so, but first of all, let me try to find common ground.
Okay.
If I say we will make rape and incest abortions legal and get rid of all the other abortions, would you agree with that?
Can you repeat that? I'm so sorry.
If I say that we will allow abortions to continue for rape and incest life of the mother, but all other abortions should be illegal, which is 99.4% of the time, can we make those 99% of abortions illegal?
Yeah, see, I don't believe that abortion should be used as a form of birth
So
control.
99% of the time it is. That's all that we're debating in the country right now. So Charlie Kirk's position is a very fringe minority. People are talking about still exceptions, so we should get rid of 99% of abortions.
Yes, but at the same time,
So you're actually not that pro-choice, actually.
I am because I feel like there's no way to kind of divide the basis of like what abortion is being used as birth control and what abortion
Oh,
is
it's
being
totally easy, actually. I mean, so you could tell through a DNA test if it's an incest baby.
Mhm.
You could tell if it's rape because they have to file a police report. And you could tell life of the mother based on an OBGYN analysis. So that's,
Okay, so
it's
then
a
if
very...
it's that easy, then why have we not done that?
Oh, because the American people don't support it. Because abortion is popularly supported as a form of birth control. That's why. So your position is actually a very rational one, and I respect you for it. 99% of all abortions are done just because people want the baby gone. 99%. That's not Charlie Kirk's numbers. That's the Guttmacher Institute, which was funded by Planned Parenthood.
Okay. So do you like feel as though like people who are victims of rape and incest, do you think that they should be able to get an abortion?
Charlie keeps trying to frame this as simple math. Human DNA equals human rights. Abortion equals murder. But reality is much more complicated. Having human DNA doesn't make something a person. Every discarded skin cell has human DNA, but we don't treat skin cells like they're entitled to rights. Personhood isn't about DNA. It's about consciousness, viability, and the ability to experience the world. That's why medicine, law, and ethics all distinguish between a fetus that cannot survive outside the womb and a living, breathing human being. Even religion doesn't give him the certainty he claims. The Bible never says life begins at conception. In fact, Exodus 21 describes a miscarriage differently from the killing of an adult, showing the ancients did not see them as equal. And Matthew 7:1, the verse the student quoted, cuts directly against Charlie's entire approach. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. If Christianity itself tells people not to sit in judgment over others' choices, how can it be used to justify controlling women's bodies? On top of that, Charlie pushes a false statistic when he says 99% of abortions are just birth control. The Guttmacher Institute's research shows the reality is more complex. The majority of people who get abortions cite multiple reasons: financial insecurity, inability to care for another child, abusive relationships, health concerns, or disruption to education or work. To reduce all of that to birth control is dishonest, And let's not forget, abortion is overwhelmingly supported by the public. Poll after poll shows that a majority of Americans believe abortion should remain legal in most cases. Charlie's position is the fringe one, not the students'. What this whole exchange shows is that when confronted with science, history, and even religious texts, Charlie dodges, simplifies, or shifts the goalposts. The students, on the other hand, ground their reasoning in facts, ethics, and lived reality. So here's the question. Should our laws be built on dogma or on evidence and compassion for real people's lives? If you found this breakdown helpful, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. Alex Hormozy spent years inside Christian apologetics, chasing every argument, every defense of the faith. But after all the study, the therapy, and the searching, he walked away. In this video, I want to unpack why. Not to mock faith, but to show why his decision makes sense, why the cracks in Christianity are real, and why atheism and agnosticism offer a clearer, freer way to live.
When I was like 19 or 20, I became a born-again Christian. The dunk, the whole thing was like, oh my God, life's amazing, Jesus is great. And then I ended up falling away from that because I was like, I don't know if this is true. And then I spent the next 5 years dedicated to apologetics, which is defense of faith, of the Christian faith. So just learning the arguments around like why Christianity like is true, right? I ended up not believing in it, and I can give a variety of reasons, but I'll give you the simplest one. Hopefully I'm not insulting anyone. This is just my belief that I'm sharing, which is one of the strongest arguments for Christianity against other world religions is that other world religions say like, if you go to the good place, so if you do a good job, you go to the good place, right? And fundamentally it's a hard paradigm because it means that like at what point are you 51% good versus 49%? Should I have just held one more door open and I would have gone to the good place forever, right? Not even talking about like finite circumstance and creating infinite outcomes, but like whatever. And so if you can draw that line, then it kind of makes it ridiculous, right? It like kind of breaks down on the like be a good person system, right? And so that's all worldviews with the exception of Buddhism and Christianity. With Christianity, they're like, you don't have to be good, you just have to have faith. And if you have faith in Jesus, then you go to the good place, right? And so the reason that for me, fundamentally, I didn't believe in that was because you actually create another false binary, which is believe or not believe, when in reality is to what extent you believe. It's how hard you believe. And again, you create another 50% line, which is should I believe 1% more? And then I would go into the good place forever, right? So anyways, the point is that I studied apologetics for a long period of time. And then I was really sad. And I was just like, fuck being sad. And I was like, fuck happiness. I was like, I'm just going to do stuff that I think is cool. And that was like the first break in the chain for me. My slogan to myself was actually just fuck happiness. And that was wildly freeing because I stopped judging myself for not being happy. And then I was just like, oh, I'm like, I am unhappy. I'm like, cool, whatever. And I just kept going. And all of a sudden it just like stopped mattering to me. Like, I don't think about it. I genuinely, like, I don't think like, does this make me happy? Does it not? Like, I don't think about it.
You just do what you want to do in the moment?
Just do whatever I feel like doing. And it's not like it's like all short term, like all pleasure seeking, whatever. Like I still have a long term perspective of like, this is what I want to build.
Yeah.
Like I want to write these books. I want to build these courses. I want to do this stuff. But it's like, those are things that I enjoy. So that's what I do.
I love it. That's great. All right. I don't have anything to say there.
I mean, I had questions, but now I know the answers to them just based off your...
I'm just listening.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather just listen and not say anything.
I know.
You know? Like, I don't want to mess it up. But then I created a belief that now I'm going to mess it up. So
oh, God. Why does it matter, man?
Why does it even matter that I messed it up to begin with?
It doesn't. And you can't mess it up.
And then the comments are going to be, Grant messed it up. And then everything in the comments. Why does that matter?
I know it's crazy stuff, but like, I think that like, if you want to, like, you can't do what 99% of people are doing if you want to be in the 1%.
Yeah.
Like, fundamentally. And so, like, you have to have, like, what I would consider, like, maybe uncomfortable conversations. Just be like, that's okay. Like, cool. Like, I'm going to do my thing. And then they're like, and the thing is, a lot of times, if you just make your statements of, like, this is how I believe, like, people feel like you're attacking them. Especially if you articulate it well. Because they're like, well, I don't. I'm like, cool. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, do whatever you want. Like, it's all good to me. And so, which is why I don't talk about it as much publicly.
His verdict sounds honest and clear. The saved versus lost frame depends on belief strength. A sliding scale never stabilizes. Mark 9:24 admits doubt inside belief. Matthew 7:21 rejects simple profession. John 3 stresses faith. James 2 demands works. One rulebook conflicts with another. Natural explanations cover origins and mind. Evolution accounts for human life. Modern cosmology models a universe without a personal creator. Neuroscience links moral judgment and spiritual highs to brain states. Randomized trials on intercessory prayer show no benefit versus controls, including the large STEP study. History shows creed policing harms people. Councils define orthodoxy, rulers punish dissent, crusades and inquisitions follow. Fear of hell drives compliance, not compassion. Atheism or agnosticism frees you from an invisible bar to clear. Meaning grows from action, love, and responsibility. Evidence guides choices. You own mistakes, learn, keep building. Alex chose progress over guilt. Purpose plus autonomy plus mastery correlates with well-being across many studies. Values-based goals beat guilt-driven rituals.
How about this? Yeah. What bothers you? There's got to be something out there that, like,
I also have another
wasting
question.
my time.
People wasting your time. That's a really good answer.
That's
That's
a
a
good
great
one,
answer.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I don't have a lot of.
This may seem like a silly question, but if you go to a restaurant and you order something, let's say you order a steak and you order it medium well, and it comes back medium rare.
Yeah.
Do you say something?
It's not worth his time.
No, I don't actually.
You don't.
No. Why would I? I don't care.
But at the same time, I was like, well, a lot of people would be anxious to say something, and I figured you probably wouldn't care about those emotions, right?
I wouldn't even have an emotion first. I mean, that's such a non. Yeah. I mean, maybe like like we have a big ad campaign that's supposed to go out, and like I get all the creatives the day before, and it's supposed to launch. Like, would that annoy me? I'd be like, yes, but let's fix it. Like this is bad. We can't run this. Let's try again. And in the end, it won't matter because we're all going to die, and this money is going to go back to the game. I'll give you this one analogy. This might be a good wrap up. So this is like my mental analogy that I don't know, makes sense to me, which is like if life were a game, right? And all of us are given a token to like enter like a casino because we're in Vegas, right? And so we all get a token, we enter the casino and we sit down at the table to play poker, right? And everybody's playing, everybody's got cards, and all of, we're dealt cards. Everybody's dealt different cards, and we got to play the hand we're dealt. And depending on our level of skill, we amass more and more chips throughout the game, right? And at the end of the game, the difference between the real world and the casino and the game of life, right? In the real world, you go and you can cash out your chips and you walk out with money, and there you go. There's your day. But I feel like in the casino of life, you get tapped on the shoulder by the Grim Reaper, and he says, your time's up. And then all your chips get pushed right back to the middle of the table. And then you leave the casino empty-handed because it was a fake game with fake rules that didn't matter. And so like we accumulate these chips that I'm just going to push back in the middle again that other people are going to play on. And like the reason that analogy became real for me is like I bought this piece of land in Austin, and I was like, that's neat. And then I was like, how many people have owned this piece of land? It's like the guy before me owned it, and the guy before him owned it, and the guy before him owned it. And I was like, and they were like, this is mine. And then they die or they sell it, and someone was like, this is mine. It's like, they're just chips that just get played with, and they just get amassed and then they get redistributed. It just doesn't matter. Like death taxes everybody 100%. So like everyone's like estate planning. It's like, dude, 500 generations from now, like your offspring are, 500 to the, 0.5 or, 1/2 to the 500th power of like diluted. They're basically just humans at that point. So if your wealth somehow is big enough that it can be diluted that much, and last that long, the people who own it are just humans. So they're just as close to me as you are. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, right? And then the alternative is the people that I'm giving this to are just the ones that I care about are the immediate family. But then when people get resources that they didn't learn how to use or manage, then it destroys them because it's too much potential energy. They can't handle it, right? And so it's like, it's really for nothing. And so like, if you want, you can build something that you think is cool. But like at the end of the day, like we're just going to cash the chips in. So anyways, Alex's worldviews, but
wow, it's a great analogy.
Just a lot to think about this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch this.
But
you know what's funny? I was actually thinking I
rewatch
never
this.
listen to podcasts.
No, but this segment,
I would actually listen to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Money, income, net worth. Ooh.
Yeah.
Investing, indexes, savings accounts, what credit cards?
That's good.
Jeez. Thank you so much.
No,
Thank you, Alex, for coming on.
This has been an incredible podcast.
Yeah,
really.
I think so.
I appreciate you having me, and to the audience, like, I know that a lot of the stuff that I say can be triggering, and I know that at different points in my life, if I had heard someone say what I'm saying in the position that I am, I would be offended, and I want to make it clear that it's not my intention to do that at all. It's just me sharing beliefs that, as I understand the world, and that is no way projection on you or how you see the world, etc. It's just, this is how I see the world, and these are beliefs that serve me well. That helped me overcome a lot of things that I thought mattered.
Alex is right to anchor on time. Wrong stake does not matter. Save energy for big decisions. Research on regret shows wasted time ranks high near life's end. Hedonic adaptation, research shows mood snaps back after wins or losses. Action beats rumination. His casino analogy holds. Death returns chips to the table. Estate data backs this. Most family wealth disappears by generation 3. Sudden wealth harms unprepared heirs. Studies link windfalls to higher addiction and depression. No afterlife scorekeeper needed. Meaning grows from projects you choose, people you love, work you do now. Stoics taught control over response, not outcomes. Buddhism teaches non-attachment. Both align with Alex's move away from guilt toward purposeful work. Christian texts give mixed signals on money and legacy. Matthew 6:19 warns against treasures on earth. 1 Timothy 5:8 demands provision for household. Proverbs 13:22 praises leaving inheritance to grandchildren. Guidance conflicts. Binary salvation fails here too. Who qualifies, the generous billionaire without faith, or the believer who neglects family duty? Alex's view fits observed life. Value flows from process, skill, service, and curiosity. Prioritize time, not status. Build, learn, help people around you. No fear of failing a cosmic test. Time is scarce. Spend time well.
Imagine you talk to the creator of the universe before birth and pick the person you get to become. You say, I want to be the most courageous. The creator replies and says, well, then I will give you monsters to terrify you so that you can conquer them. And you say, well, I want to be patient. Well, then I will make you work harder and longer so you can learn to wait. I want to be wise. And the creator replies, then I will give you failures that will crush your spirit so you can learn the value of judgment. You then say, sounds like a rough life. Can you give me a good life? The creator replies, I measure you by what you are at the end, not the fire and the hammer it took to make you. A good life isn't a life that's easy. A good life is a life that makes you into a good person. And that, my son, is a hard life.
You know, event or action occurred that make you felt that emotion.
If we believe that we have to, like, why should we?
Why should you feel that emotion?
Like, why should we process a traumatic event? Like, what does that mean?
Well, I do believe that there are, like, you know, things in your brain biologically that if they are deprived of something, or there's like some bad traumatic event or something, like that will affect your
so what makes
biological.
An event traumatic versus non-traumatic?
I mean, I feel like the definition of the word trauma would probably.
But what would be the line between, like, okay, in like let's give an example of something terrible, right? Actually not, because it's a podcast and people might hate on Graham. So let's just say something bad happens that we describe as bad in this culture, right? In another culture, that might not be bad. It's trauma in this culture. It's not trauma in this culture. So if the circumstance is the same, why was it traumatic?
Circumstances weren't the same.
Why not?
Because the culture.
The facts were the same. What we describe the facts as changed, which means that we can choose to call something trauma.
But doesn't it make sense that people would be built up due to culture and environment?
40-year-old guy sleeps with a 15-year-old girl. Terrible, right? Rewind 200 years. 40-year-old guy sleeps with a 15-year-old girl. 100% normal, right? How is it trauma now and not trauma then? And mind you, like, this is not my statement. You have to pull an extreme example if we're going to talk about trauma to illustrate the concept, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's traumatic in one instance and not traumatic in another, then it means that we can basically change the cultural narrative that we're ascribing to our context and make it not traumatic.
That makes sense.
Right. Which means it didn't matter. Which means the only thing that matters is that you chose to make it meaningful.
But let's say like the passing of a parent or like a loved 100%. One or something like that.
If we think like we feel like we have a narrative that says if I don't mourn, it means I didn't care about them. Right? Mm-hmm. That's a statement of belief. I could say that if I don't mourn about them, it means I totally cared about them. Like, why does my mourning have any indication of how much I cared? They're non-correlates, right? But it's just because we have so many of these belief statements that like quote society or things that we inherit, right? But we just choose to say that this is how life is. And so I think it's just like monitoring what those statements are. And so like one of my favorite sayings, probably like if I had one thing on my tombstone, it would be a permutation of a quote by Orson Scott Card, which is, we question all of our beliefs except for those that we truly believe and those we never think to question.
That's a good quote.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like of course I'm opening to questioning my beliefs. It's like, what's trauma? Like when someone's like, I was traumatized, it's like, were you? Or do you just choose to label it as trauma and then now you fucked up the rest of your life because you call it trauma when 200 years ago it was life? And 1,000 years ago, having your parent killed in front of you was just nature, if you want to go biology, right? And so we just choose to create meaning around things. And so like at the end of the day, like end to end to end, bottom, root.
Yeah.
All our brains do is just create and destroy meaning. And so we say, this is a threat, this is not a threat. We make we need to reinforce this behavior, we don't need to reinforce this behavior, all through meaning. Mm-hmm. And so if you can control what you deem meaningful, you can massively shift the odds in your favor because you don't need to ascribe meaning to.
Well, couldn't that be, let's say like 500 years ago, you see like a parent killed in front of you. Yeah. Isn't that because all you have in your mind is like food, shelter, water?
Sure.
And now that we have these things taken care of, our minds go to other places.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just don't think it changes the actual facts. So it's like there's stimulus response, right? And so like we get to control the response, we control the stimulus. And so like, was it it's either Seneca or Epictetus who's like, no one yells at a rock, right? And so it's like, if you are the rock, then like just it doesn't matter, right? Like you just like eventually like people just fuck off and just leave you alone. And so like, and if you see stimulus of life that way in terms of like how you deem things or label things traumatic or not traumatic or good or bad, you know what I mean? It's the same thing with, I'm sure with like the hate comments and whatnot. It's like, if you deem the comments of the fans as meaningful, then you will both care about them being positive and you will care about them being negative. Mm-hmm. But if they're not meaningful at all to begin with, then like, I don't think you can do either. I think you just either have to participate in both sides or you remove. That is also a belief statement, right? So like maybe you can. So, you know, interesting thoughts.
So how did you transition from, I'm assuming you used to care a little bit more about beliefs and stuff like that. How did you transition from that to now not caring? And like, did you have to completely change your mindset to where 100%. Your automatic response to things was just like, what are these chains of emotions and like the cultural constraints and stuff like that
100%.
That are making me feel this way?
Yeah.
Did you just switch that light switch, or do you still on occasion catch yourself slipping?
I just did right now. I just said that as a belief.
Right. That's what I figured.
100%. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think you systematically, you hear, like, that's why the talking is so important. Like, what words are we using? What do those words mean? Like, you say trauma, I'm like, define that. What do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. Which is why, like, when you hear really good writing that's academic, like the first few pages will be like, we're going to talk about this, and this is how we define this, and this is how we define this. It's like we're putting constraints around the words that we're using because they equate to thoughts. They're just buckets, right? That we like say a word like trauma, and like it means something different to all three of us. So it's like we have to agree on the definition before we can talk about it.
Alex centers everything on time, work, and mortality. Small annoyances fade. Energy goes to actions that move the needle. His casino frame holds. Death returns the chips. No cosmic bookkeeper is needed for meaning. Build skill. Serve people. Enjoy the work. Wealth studies show most fortunes dissolve by the third generation. Sudden windfalls often harm unprepared heirs. Outcomes match his point about focus and stewardship. The creator story he tells also lands without a deity. Growth follows friction. Psychology calls this post-traumatic growth, with decades of data from Tedeschi and Calhoun. Hard seasons can raise courage, patience, and wisdom. No invisible plan required. On death, reason stays firm. Epicurus argued fear of death makes life worse. Neuroscience ties experience to brain function. When brains stop, experience stops. Before birth, no awareness. After life, the same silence. Alex accepts this and moves forward. Scripture tension supports his exit. Mark 9:24 shows belief on a spectrum. Matthew 7:21 undercuts simple profession. Canon history shows councils and politics shaped texts. Thousands of manuscript differences exist. A moving target should not run your life. So he left. He chose evidence, agency, and work over guilt and creed policing. You can do the same. Audit beliefs by outcomes. Keep beliefs that build love, health, and service. Drop beliefs that burn time and breed fear.